This is Toon Talk Weekly, episode 248. This week, things get a little bit weird when Brad and I revisit the WB show, Freakazoid.
A bizarre power. The power to turn beavers into gold. Where did he come from? What did he want? And why was there a mint seed? Did it reveal character? How was the story advanced? We may never know. But now,
on with the adventures of Freakazoid! Pull the string!
The day just keeps getting better.
Boy. Where is that kid?
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Toon Talk Weekly. This is the weekly cartoon podcast where we talk about a different cartoon every single week. My name's Jake Williams. I brought along my good friend Brad Chmielewski to chat cartoons once again this week. What's up, man?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. How are you?
Yeah, doing great.
It's another week, another cartoon, as we do around here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wouldn't do anything less at this point.
I was on like a cartoon kick this past week because I found more Steven Universe in the Cartoon Network app. I was going to watch Craig from the
Creek.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say Woods, but yeah, Craig from the Creek. But Steven Universe was there, so now I have Craig from the Creek to watch. Mm-hmm. And then I was like digging around on Hulu, and I sent you a couple links to some cartoons that we should do coming up here, including like Planet Sheen, you know, the Jimmy Neutron spinoff, and then I found this one called Camp Lake Bottom that I watched a few episodes of late last night.
Is that a new show?
I have no idea when it came out. It just happened to come up, and it was in that, 8-year and plus category on Hulu.
As long as that's the case. It looks like 2013, so not that old, and it actually looks like it's still going. So that's pretty awesome. It does look pretty cool. Funny thing talking about camp is what did we? Oh, we just did Cat Agent last week, which is a lot of fun. And when I'm putting it into the entries into the website, of course I'm going alphabetically because I think that's an easy way for people to find shows. We've done like 8 shows that start with the word camp.
Oh, really?
It's so many cartoons about camp.
Common cartoon thing, I guess.
I guess so. So. Sure, let's add another one to it. And also, I'm guessing Planet Sheen is probably a 3D animated series as well.
Yeah, I only watched the first episode so far because they are 20-something minute episodes, and I believe at that point it was like 2 a.m. So I was like, yeah, I'm not going to start another one. I'm done.
You're like, I wasn't looking to get invested here. I just wanted to watch.
Yeah, I just needed some background stuff, and Jimmy Neutron kind of world seemed like perfect enough where it's like you don't have to pay attention.
I would love to see, I guess you kind of saw with the Jimmy Timmy like Power Hour crossover thing, like I kind of want to see the Jimmy Neutron world but in like a sharp 2D like modern style. I think that would be fun.
Yeah.
And I don't doubt, give it at least 5-10 years, like they'll make it. Because they'll be like, hey, kid, remember you 30-year-old millennial people? Remember when Jimmy Neutron was a thing? Check it out. We made a new version.
We're bringing it back.
Yeah. It's like, it's like what they've done with like the new DuckTales. But that looks great. So hopefully all new shows can look just as good. But yeah, maybe, man, it's been a while since we've done a 3D show. We should probably do another one of those.
And I haven't dove into that DuckTales show yet, but I see random reviews on YouTube and people talking about it. So yeah, it's on my list.
That's on your list. I've been thinking a lot about, and of course not watching because I never make time for stuff. Batman the Animated Series is on, I think it's on Amazon, and I keep thinking about it. I think I came across I was looking for like art books the other day because that's something you do. and I found one that was like cells and drawings and stuff from Batman the Animated Series, and I'm like, man, for something I've never seen before, this looks amazing. And I've never met a person that's said a bad word about Batman the Animated Series.
I know there's people that love it a lot, so
yeah. It's also like, and we're also still this weird thing, man, where you and I know a few shows that we have like in our back pocket that we have friends that would love to talk about them. And it's just about making the time to actually get around to watching them and that kind of thing. So welcome to Toon Talk Weekly. This is, of course, episode 248. And this week, Brad and I will be talking about the WB show Freakazoid. Brad, you've heard of this show, right?
I've heard of this show. And I probably said when we watched the Animaniacs show, and I believe we did Prinky in the Brain,
mm-hmm.
There's something about this WB block that I just did not enjoy growing up.
I was literally watching this show the other night thinking to myself, oh, this is the show that Brad hates. It's got a feel to it that is like not good with Brad.
I don't know, that whole WB block. I think I liked Pinky and the Brain more,
mm-hmm.
but yeah, the Tick, Freakazoid, Pinky and the Brain, Animaniacs, and I believe there was like one Earthworm Jim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will especially say the very Warner Brothers heavy episodes of things. So like Freakazoid, Animaniacs, and I think Pinky and the Brain are probably the three that come to mind. They have this thing, and I don't know what it is. There's lots of interesting pieces that make it a very good show. It's very well done. Like there's amazing music, the voice acting is great, the writing is funny, but there's like something about the pieces put together that can, if it's not your style of comedy or it's not what you're looking for, it can totally be a turnoff. And when I was watching a few episodes of Freakazoid, all I kept thinking is like, I was trying to pick the thing. I was like, what is it that Brad doesn't like about these? Because I like Animaniacs, but I was not a huge fan of Freakazoid. However, this show was on all the time. Couldn't get away from it. I think the biggest thing that takes me out of it is the fourth wall breaking. Is like so much. Like it's not just a neat little, hey, I noticed this. Did you notice this too, audience? Wink, wink. It's like it's all the time. And Freakazoid is to like the nth degree. It's way above anything I've seen.
Yeah, because Tiny Toons, they did it, and I think they did it one of the best. Like they would sometimes just like, hey, wink. Yeah, did you see that kind of
right.
thing? Like, or like just a moment. But Animaniacs, like, because they know they live in this world that's the cartoon world. And
yep.
but it's real life too. And so let's play with this. But all the references are also dated when they came out, mm-hmm. and now they're even more dated. So
yeah, that's the other thing too, is like it felt like even a lot of the references went over my head. Like the references were like for the animators and creators making the show, not for the kids watching it.
Yeah, they felt like there was like, I feel like there's like political jokes or political satire mm-hmm. of the late 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
That if you were watching them at the time, you might have got, but now you're just like, huh, who's that supposed to be again? Or like Animaniacs, they make a lot of Mel Brooks jokes. Mm-hmm. And it's like, all right, I don't know enough about Mel Brooks to like, yeah, I'm not in on this.
So it does feel like in many ways it's for an older audience, which we are now. But there's no denying the production value, like the amazing like look of the thing. I was actually kind of blown away. I was thinking about how much of a cool atmosphere shows like Freakazoid and Animaniacs created with just music and sound. Mm-hmm. It's just so full and kind of in there to like bring you into the story, into the world of whatever's happening. But yeah, there's something about putting it all together that just like, you're in for this just like supposed to be slapstick laugh fest thing. But also in the case of Freakazoid, at least the episodes I've revisited for this show this week, sometimes you just never really get the end of the plot that you signed up for because he just goes off on this tangent and does something for the rest of the episode that's completely different.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I chose to watch it today. I think I keep coming across it and finally was like, you know what, let's dive into this because as I mentioned, it was a show when I was a kid that was always on TV. There's almost never a day watching that WB block, which I actually didn't realize how much I must have watched as a kid, but it was always on and you couldn't get away from it. And I think
I got away from it.
Yeah, I think I realized watching it again this week that maybe this just wasn't my favorite show. It was just on all the time. It was like the safe thing to watch if like my favorite cartoons weren't on Cartoon Network.
I don't even know what was on at this time that I would be like, All right, I'll put this on in the background. Like growing up, what was the year of Freakazoid again?
95 to 97.
95 to 97.
But then it was in syndication for a few years, so.
Yeah, so I feel like that also would have been the time like Toonami was on, but then you had something like what's the like we did the show, but it's not that great. It's like Johnny Quest, but I think Chris Smith did it with us, right?
We did a Reboot with Chris.
Reboot was on, and Reboot's it's fine. Chris Smith loves Reboot, but it would just be on, I think, around the same time as Animaniacs was on or Freakazoid, so I would choose that over Freakazoid.
Right. Yeah, kind of an interesting one. So let's get into a little bit of backstory before we talk about the episode we watched this week. Created by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini. Comic book nerds, please don't hate me. I don't know the pantheon of Bruce Timm. However, I know that he has a lot to do with, I believe it was DC Comics. He was a pretty well-known guy there. So
Warner Brothers, DC makes sense.
So I'm not a super fan, so I don't know those things. I just recognize the name. It was developed for the Kids WB programming block on the WB, produced by Amblin Television and Warner Bros. And it was actually the third animated series for TV that was produced by Steven Spielberg and Warner Bros. Animation, kind of collaborating together. 2 seasons, 24 episodes, and fun fact, bring back this list we talked about probably like 3 or 4 years ago. It was ranked number 53 on IGN's top 100 animated series list when they did that like top 100 cartoons like 4 years ago.
Okay.
Which I'm pretty sure The Simpsons was number 1.
Probably, yeah.
So I guess, dude, originally the idea for Freakazoid was that he was supposed to be a straightforward like superhero action adventure cartoon with like comic overtones. So just like an actual comic thing to feel like a superhero, and then just have, a little bit of comedy in here. Basically, it sounds like Spielberg turned it into a flat-out comedy like Animaniacs. He's like, look, Animaniacs writers, do your thing. Make it funny. And when you look at the character of Freakazoid, I kind of can't see it being in any other way.
No, yeah.
He looks way too much like Thing 1 and Thing 2 a la Dr. Seuss for me to take him as a serious like comedy, as a action star, right? There's lots of slapstick, as we mentioned, tons of fourth wall breaking, parodies, surreal humor, pop culture references. But again, like felt like pop culture references for an older audience and not the kids that maybe were watching it. And that's not to say all of them were, but definitely some go over my head and I'm like, oh, okay. But the series chronicles the adventures of the title character, Freakazoid, who is a manic, insane superhero who battles with an array of supervillains. The show features mini episodes and also adventures with other bizarre superheroes. So typically you would get in a 22-minute block, you'd get 12 to 15 minutes of Freakazoid, and then you would also get a smaller, like 7-minute story or 2 smaller stories, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that was confusing watching the episodes we have. And I was like, wait, I thought we were watching Freakazoid. I don't even know what this was. After it was over, I don't know what it was about.
Yeah.
And it was weird.
Yeah, it's when it did jump after the what do you want to call it? After the original like episode was done, I think I watched the first episode called Dance of Doom. I was like, wait a second, there's a totally different thing that did involve Freakazoid, but it like, I don't know, it just jumped out of the story. The story was finished, and I was like, I still have like 7 more minutes of this.
Yeah.
There are lots of, I'm not going to dive into all of these references, but there were lots of things that I dug up in my research. There's a really actually great write-up on Wikipedia chronicling a lot of this stuff, but I think actually there's fan sites that have a lot more information. There's stuff that shows up in Freakazoid often and are references to things. I think that one was something about sometimes they will, just about every episode, they'll like do a credits of who's in this film or TV show, and they'll always say the same character as like the third one or something like that. One character that got me weirded out, though, I can't believe is actually I think he's in the theme song as well as every episode. There's this weird character named Emmett Neverend, or Nervend. And if you see a picture of him, which I should have sent to you before, Brad, but he's this tiny little guy with a very long stretched out neck and spiny hair, and he's got this giant, creepy looking smile on his face. This guy he appears in just about every episode for a few frames for no reason at all. He doesn't match the style at all, but this little character is just in the episodes, and I don't think he's like a Where's Waldo kind of thing.
Okay.
And I just thought that was a neat little thing that, like, when I was a kid, I wouldn't have, like, seen this weird guy and thought something about it. But I noticed it. I, like, spit out my drink when I was watching this the other night because I was like, oh, man, look, there's that weird dude I read about. So I think it's fun that the creators have these sort of, like, long-tailed jokes that they like to tell with each other. And they're like, oh, let's slip this guy into every episode for no reason. Why not? It'd be funny if, like, the last episode ever was, like, he was this master supervillain or something. But that's reaching a little bit. So the main character is Freakazoid. He was once a 16-year-old computer ace named Dexter Douglas, named such like the Peter Parkers and Bruce Banners of the world, kind of the alliteration of superhero and main characters. He became Freakazoid through an overloaded pinnacle chip inside of his computer, and I believe he becomes Freakazoid now by yelling the phrase "freak out." And if he wants to be Dexter again, he says "freak in." And because why? What else would you say?
I guess so, yeah.
So yeah, man, the episode I watched this week was, I think it was episode 1 of the series. Not that this show really does like an origin, but it was called Dance of Doom. Did you catch that one as well?
Was that the Candyman one?
It was the one, so it takes place at a school dance.
Oh, no, I didn't watch that. I watched the other one.
Oh, okay, good.
That was like basically a Bloody Mary or Candyman kind of thing.
Oh, interesting. Well, in Dance of Doom, it's all about a high school dance, and there's also this big guy who's almost like I don't want to call him King Kong, but just a big oaf of a villain who's just kind of destroying things, and of course he makes his way to the school dance. And the entire episode is like, there's weird moments where Freakazoid's mom is, as Dexter Douglas, he's in his bedroom, and he's going over like how much money he needs to make before he dies to like get things like his portfolio options basically. And his mom's like, you got to go to this dance. And he's like, nah, I got to figure out how I'm going to like diversify all these stocks or something. And she's like, that's so very sad.
But hon, isn't there a dance tonight? Gee, Dexter, I'd love to go to the dance with you if I were ugly and dead.
Sorry, Dex, but I've got to wash my hair or help the needy. I forget which.
Oh, can't do it, Dex. That's the night I'm having something removed.
I don't want to go.
You spend far too much time with your computer. It's not healthy.
It's my life.
That's so very, very sad.
Like, she also knows her son is a super nerd and staying home from the dance just to do this thing.
Yeah, but man, he would have made so much money in the 90s. Those 90s tech stocks.
Yeah. But essentially the plot boils down to, like, there's what totally turns me, I'm tongue-tied here. What totally turns me off about the show is that, like, okay, plot pretty simple, right? Villain starts attacking prom dance, and Freakazoid springs into action, goes save the dance. But then you have like a 2-minute scene in the middle there where the cop's like, hey, we gotta go get like a mint, which I didn't know what a mint was. I don't know if it was like an ice cream or like a type of dessert you stop and get or food or something. And they have this whole scene that's like, hey, you need to stop this guy, but let's go do this. And then at the end of that scene, they say, oh, that was a really good mint. Now we should go like fight the villain. Like, why did I get it's a different type of humor, but so then Freakazoid springs into action. He does save the day. There is a scene near the end of this episode where he is one of the girls he saved is really into him and wants to kiss him. So he tries to like turn into Dexter again to be like, oh, I finally got the girl. And she's like, oh, get away from me, nerd. Like, there's a nerd over here, guys. Get him away. Like, that's what high school was like for nerds. So he has to turn back into Freakazoid to actually get the girl.
Okay.
But it was kind of an interesting episode, but definitely not one I remembered. I know I kind of like breezed through the plot, but man, was there so much just like back and forth breaking. I believe the second portion of the episode here, I don't quite remember the plot, but I do remember that Freakazoid himself, like, it was featured about something else, and then Freakazoid just totally took it over, and it turned into an entirely different story than what you actually start with, which appears to be very typical of Freakazoid episodes.
Okay. Yeah, and it looks like scrubbing through, it looked like there was like some sort of Batman joke too.
Yes, yeah, there was like how should we save this hero? You know, we need a hero. Oh, well, he's on another network, so we need to do this. Also, there was a weird thread through the episode, dude, where it's like they kept calling attention to this guy who's like, this guy with this mysterious pocket watch that turns them into gold. because that's the thing you'd want to do. And near the end of the episode, he shows up and Freakazoid just yells at him to be like, "You're so weird! Stop being weird!" And that was enough to deter him from turning Beavis into gold.
Okay.
Yeah.
The one I watched was called Candlejack. And so basically, there's this camp and everyone's telling like scary stories. And then Freakazoid basically tells the scariest of the stories. He's like, it'd be really scary if Sinbad got another TV show. And so everyone like freaks out and runs to the cabin. Yeah. So first off, that joke is just like doesn't work anymore. I think people would like to see a Sinbad show again, but
I like Jingle All the Way, so I'm all for it.
You don't really believe in that stuff about Sinbad getting another TV show, do you, Buzz?
Nah. The broadcasting industry has all sorts of safeguards to prevent that sort of thing. The guy you really gotta watch out for is Candlejack.
Candlejack? Who's that?
He's the boogeyman. The for real one. He comes to kids at night and steals them from their beds. Then he takes them to some secret place. And they never, ever come back.
Why does he do that?
Because he's a nut.
But then he's like, tells the, like, basically, damsel in distress character, the camp counselor lady, he's like, gonna leave. He's like, don't worry, if I know cartoon superheroes, I'll be back at the end of the episode to save you from the villain. And then he just like tries to fly off, but he's like, oh yeah, I can't fly, and just leaves. And then so he's back, then we're back to all these kids, and basically if you say Candlejack out loud, Candlejack appears and he will come and take you. That's what happens.
Makes sense.
And so Freakazoid shows back up, and he says Candlejack, and he gets taken as well, because there's like just the running joke of like, don't say his name. Who? That guy. Who? Candlejack? Oh, blah. Look at that.
It's like a modern day Voldemort or Beetlejuice kind of thing, huh?
Uh-huh. But then this whole thing is after Freakazoid gets captured, he's like sitting there and he's like, oh, hold on, let me take a moment, and unties himself, and he's like, you know what, I want to thank everyone here, and walks around the set with the camera people and like, this guy's really great, the director's good, man, you guys are doing a really good job, craft services, blah blah blah.
There, I'll be right back. I've got to go charter a bus. Believe it or not.
I'd just like to pause here a minute and say what a gas and a sagacious experience it is working on today's show, because I walked onto the set today and everyone looked at me and said, we're going to have fun. Fun, fun, fun. And then Joey Leahy came, the announcer. Tell me he's not great. Tell me he's not great. Go ahead, tell me. You can't, right? You can't. And then you've got Eddie Asner, a bear of a man, a huggable guy. I kiss him. Mwah.
And then he sits back down, but then it goes to some random guy who tells the end of the story, who's like, basically, they captured Candlejack and Freakazoid was the hero of the day. That is the end of the story. Thanks for watching. That was it.
That's
so,
yeah.
You got no result from like, it's like the easiest way out. It's like super lazy writing at the same time. It's like clever and lazy at the same time, where you're like, you know what? I'm not even going to show you how this happened. I'll just tell you, and it's me, an old man sitting here.
But that's the Freakazoid MO though, is to like break the fourth wall so much, not even just talking to you, but Freakazoid loves to pull the camera back and show, hey, here's the cameraman, here's the people working on making this show called Freakazoid, kind of thing. And the narrator, I think, showed up in my episode too. It's like there's a moment that they needed to cut to him for no reason. Well, there is a reason. It's to be funny, but like that they kind of did that stuff. So it sounds like Freakazoid employed a typical tactic there of breaking the fourth wall to show you like the camera crew in your episode as well. There was also, dude, I did remember now, the back half of my episode was something about he actually is like cornered by one of the arch nemesis or one of his villains, and he uses like his hand, as you know, you use your hand to be like, oh, I'm talking, I have a mouth. He like painted a face on it. He uses his hand to like convince him that that's a real person, and it saves the day. and then his hand gets married to his other hand, and the whole episode is him doing like hands talking to each other and kissing and like loving each other. Yep, entire episode.
Okay.
So that's the one I forgot, but so 2 sort of different episodes. It sounds like yours broke the fourth wall way more, at least at the end of the story.
Yeah, there was also like a lot of clips in mine of like real clips, like real people dancing or an owl or like random stuff.
Yeah. Because why not? I don't know, man. I don't even know where to go with this show. There's so many things that it definitely reminds me a lot of Animaniacs, but of course it should, because I think it did share some of the same writers. But instead, they kind of had this superhero gimmick they could play up with. I would be interested to see how much of it actually took itself seriously, because it seems like there are very few moments in both of our episodes that were ever serious. Like, is there a bigger arc to like Freakazoid getting a girlfriend or like that kind of stuff? And of course, we can answer those questions, but I don't know that you and I are going to go watch 2 seasons of Freakazoid.
Probably not, yeah.
So it was definitely interesting to check out what was going on with that. But yeah, man, I don't know. I don't really know what else I can add about Freakazoid. I do think at the top of the show we kind of added a lot of what's in this show. But now that you've revisited it, I mean, do you still feel the same way?
I still feel the same way, and it could be like I think if they redid it today, it would be weirder and it would be on Adult Swim, right? They would go even creepier and like grosser and just more off the wall with the references, with putting in live action clips, with how he became Freakazoid. He wouldn't just be like some nerd that was sucked into the internet, that seems weird.
But yeah,
there'd be less nerd jokes too. Like
maybe
even in the like second episode that I watched, like the B part, it was confusing. Freakazoid wasn't in there, but one of the first lines, this scientist to his adopted daughter is like, maybe one day you'll be a scientist like me, and she just starts screaming and slaps him. Like, so there was a lot of like being smart, being a nerd, being a scientist is not good. And I guess that was a lot of like the 90s maybe. Like if you liked computers,
yeah,
it was not socially acceptable.
Well, now it's just things kids are into. Like it seems like there's no designation anymore. But yeah, right. I think it feels like kids or younger people know more now. So you couldn't just have it be that like, yeah, he just hits, enters a string and hits delete on his keyboard and he's a superhero. They'd be like, actually the HTML, JavaScript would, I don't know if they would. So
he would have used the Tor network and he would have.
So cool to revisit Freakazoid. It's basically exactly. It's so funny too because for some reason these shows don't age. Like they have aside from the references, right? That of course does, but they're exactly how I remember them. Whereas like revisiting Nicktoons sometimes I'm like, oh man, I don't know why I like this. It's way slower than I remember it. For some reason these shows are like so well produced, so well put together, and maybe it's not my cup of tea. It just like exists in its own bubble of like, here's a thing that some really great creators got together to actually make. Stood the test of time. And now if, WB wants to get back into, I mean, I feel like WB, if they ever, I'm sure they still have the license. If they ever brought this stuff back, they'd need to like do all of it at once. Like
for sure.
Reboot everything. So that's going to do it for this week's episode, all about Freakazoid. But let's see where we could find us when we're not recording the show. Brad, where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter @brad, and my blog is digitalhitchhiker.com.
Can't get him off there. He's stuck on Twitter. Help him out. Donate today. You can follow me on Twitter @Jacob Williams. And of course, if you want more Toon Talk Weekly, we're on all the social medias that I use. So we're on Twitter @Toon Talk Weekly, Facebook.com/Toon Talk Weekly. Heck, even Google Plus as Toon Talk Weekly, and our new Instagram page as Toon Talk Weekly as well over there. Send us an email. toontalkweekly@gmail.com is the place if you want to let us know. Maybe we need to know more about Freakazoid, and if you guys obviously have that information, like let us know, because we'd love to know more and bring it back up on next week's show too, so we can correct ourselves, because it seems like one of those shows that's like pretty deep that maybe I didn't get into as much as I needed to discuss it, but we do that a lot here. That's what happens when you do weekly programming. And finally, the website, toontalkweekly.com, the main hub for the show, where you can find all episodes alphabetically on the homepage for any episode you would want to check out. But that's going to do it for this week's show. Brad, I'm sorry I had to make you endure Freakazoid. I knew right off the bat it just was not going to be your bag, but
that's all right.
We did it.
They all can't be, they all can't be Clarence.
I mean, that's a show. Mm-hmm. You should do a new show called They All Can't Be Clarence. Here's the twist. It's actually all about Clarence. So that's going to do it for this week's episode of Toon Talk Weekly. We'll be back next week with another cartoon.
Take care.
To learn more about the show, visit toontalkweekly.com or follow us on Twitter @ToonTalkWeekly.